Welcome to episode 109. There is no better time than right now to plan your vacation getaway. Don't have the time to plan? Use the friendly travel agents at 3D Travel Company by going to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and clicking the Book Now button today on the left-hand side. Hurry and plan your trip today so you can travel away.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest is the voice of young Todd from the Walt Disney classic, The Fox and the Hound. I hope you enjoy this clip and the interview to follow.
Papa, you're my very best friend. And you're mine too, Todd. And we'll always be friends forever, won't we? Yeah, forever. Hey, let's go swimming. Give me a head start and I can beat you.
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today on the show I am so excited to be bringing you an interview with Keith Coogan. Keith, thank you so much for joining me on the show today, bud.
Thank you, Trenton, for having me. Absolutely an honor. I appreciate it. And, I hope everyone having an awesome day.
Absolutely. Well, it is really super exciting for me. I mean, The Fox and the Hound is something we are definitely going to be talking about and let people know exactly what that means for our interview today. But The Fox and the Hound has always been something that means so much to me. And being able to talk with you is just like super magical, and Disney's magical and this is magical, and I'm super excited. The very first thing though we've got to dive into is a little bit about you. So tell me, who was the little Keith Coogan growing up, and how did he become the man he is today, and how did he get into voice acting and just acting in general?
Well, he was just a working performer since about 6 years old, professionally, and eager for adults' attention, and commercial sets and TV shows, and ultimately movie sets were the ultimate platform for a young child to be treated as an adult. They have, adult expectations on work. And then the flip side for me was I got to hang out with all these adults, and which I thought was fun, and crazy ones, not normal 9 to 5, accountant or attorney or doctor, and movie folk are kind of fun and nuts because they're crazy. They really do, they make something out of just nothing that was there before, and it's one of the most cost prohibitive art forms on the planet that incorporates everything: animation and poetry and ballet and music, and it brings it all together into one content wrapper.
Yeah.
And films are just incredibly powerful, and they're just 100 years old or so. It's like a new medium, and we've seen the physical way of delivering that medium change so many times over the year.
Yeah.
And that's getting faster and faster and faster, how images are captured and shared, and sound. So it is, it's great. It's like my grandfather, who was Jackie Coogan. He saw silent movies go into talkies, and then he saw that go into color, and then he saw television come along, and I got to see the transfer from film to digital.
Wow.
Recording, which was just as big of a paradigm shift. And now we're seeing another one, which is content delivery instead of printing something and shipping it out. And now you can have a digital master and you can beam it to theaters. And I don't know, it's an exciting time to make movies. The cost to make them, the bar has lowered with a very good camera and such, and the right contract over at SAG, you can make a movie for almost nothing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, we'll definitely talk about Jackie here in a few minutes, but when you talk about a black and white film going to a talkie, that's such a retro term, but I love it because it makes me think of one of my absolute favorite movies of all times, which is Singing in the Rain. Because you kind of see that transition in film of black and whites becoming talkies and colored, and just kind of seeing some of that early transition of the film industry itself,
Well, they were on it. I mean, there were rumors at the time that there was an actor that was popular with audiences, but unpopular with anyone that had worked with them. Switched to talkies, there was an actor that they disliked, studio head got mad at and asked the sound engineers to make his already kind of high-pitched, annoying voice even more so that audiences were, and it's probably a model for Singing in the Rain anyway.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your grandfather, Jackie Coogan. I know he played Uncle Fester on The Addams Family, and he also helped establish something called the Coogan Act, or the Coogan Bill, as it's called.
Yeah, he had been a performer since about probably 3 or 4 as part of his parents' vaudeville act, and discovered by Chaplin and thrust into, there were child stars before, and film and stage child stars internationally. But it was the first feature for Chaplin, and it was a huge hit. The Kid launched him into kind of worldwide fame that no child had seen at that time. And he grew up the exact course of every child star. As he gets older, the parts get fewer and far between, and audiences go, "Oh, they've grown up now."
Yeah.
And he went, multiple marriages and world wars, and then had the great thing that everyone loves in America, the comeback with Uncle Fester and the Addams Family, exposing him to a whole new generation of fans, and he just left a really endearing legacy, not only on the screen, but in having a law that does outlay working conditions and hours and schooling and trust fund set aside. So, he did have to sacrifice a good amount of a fortune, but it's protected so many kids since then. So I'm just nothing but proud of my grandfather. And probably as a child at, 7, 8, 9 years old, that's when I was most trying to chase his legacy, going, okay, if I just get some movies and so, and I realized that actually when his career started dying at 13, 14, 15, that's when mine, started picking up. And I did my first feature, Adventures in Babysitting, at 16, turned 17 on the set. And by that time, my grandfather had cut his hair, and audiences weren't buying as many tickets to the films.
Yeah, which is sad, but times change, and we have to change with them sometimes, sadly. But it's really amazing that he played Uncle Fester, and with his early film working with Charlie Chaplin, that's just amazing. Such an iconic era of film. I think the Coogan Act is amazing. And I know he may have spent a good part of a fortune doing it, but he's really solidified so many children in a safe way. And I know it's not in all states. I believe it's only in a few states. Is that right, Keith? The law?
Yeah, 4 or 5 states, and
Okay.
some even have amounts they have to earn before it even triggers the trust fund portion of it. But minor protection is important. I think there's nationwide protection for animals and standards for animals to work, but there aren't yet for film and television for minors working in live action. So we're trying to expand it from the 5 states that kind of recognize and have a form of the Coogan Act.
Well, I applaud y'all for doing that. So
It should be done. I really have no idea. I think it's a matter of talking to labor boards and attorney generals, and talking to each state and getting them as far on board as possible. And there's no reason a child can't consent necessarily to a contract, except in the entertainment industry.
yeah.
This is where they do, if it's gone through the unions and the agents and managers, a minor is beholden to a contractual obligation. And so the rules are very different. But
Yeah.
we'd love to broaden that protection. Would be amazing.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think it's wonderful, and it's wonderful that you're able to carry on, your uncle's, or not your uncle, but your grandfather's legacy. I was thinking Uncle Fester. But
That's fine. I have people that go, your grandfather was great on the Munsters and Little Rascals, and it's wrong. Cooper.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, the thing that we are really going to dive into here, Keith, is Todd from The Fox and the Hound, where you played the young fox on the 1981 Disney classic. And you played with, Corey Feldman, who was, of course, the young Copper, and Mickey Rooney played the adult Todd, and Kurt Russell played the adult Cooper. That show is just an extremely sweet it is sweet and it's sad, but it's a very heartwarming story of friendship and adversity and all kinds of things. But tell us, what was it like being able to play the young Todd, and what was that like working on that show for you?
I recall that it was the first and only voiceover I'd ever done. And usually you're running around to auditions for commercials and guest appearances on TV shows. Try out for the odd movie here or there, but John Hughes hadn't hit yet in the 70s. So kids weren't really the feature of most movies. They were always a bag. They're in the back. They have a few lines. I called it jump and shout lines. And so probably a regular audition. I remember auditioning for Peanuts and Linus, actually.
Oh, okay.
And but I think that went to Jeremy Miller from Growing Pains. So no, I'm actually friends with a lot of former child stars and people that also still act, perform in other ways, sing, dance, direct, and we had so much fun doing that. And I remember there were different casts of Charlie Brown that went in and out, and they're all friends with each other, and so there was really no rivalry, and so getting it was really exciting to go onto the Disney lot and into their recording studio for it. It's very large. It's got a pool table in it.
Nice.
They also use it as a Foley stage, and it is you learn the rules. You come in loose clothes or sweatpants, no change or keys or anything in your pocket that will make sound, because you're going to jump around in front of the mic and do a lot of physical activity and grunting, and you start to take it scene by scene. On this one, it had the original 9 old men from Disney.
Oh, wow.
That had done Snow White, and they were handing it off to a crop of new young animators. John Lasseter and Tim Burton and Don Bluth. These were the young new upstarts. And Don Bluth left in the middle of production and formed his own production company, taking a lot of animators with him. So it stalled production of Fox and the Hound. It actually took him 3 years to do it. Was the most expensive animated movie at the time for Disney, $10 million. $10 million. And so all of the character design and some of the initial scenes were done by the old wise men, and then mid-production they'd handed it over and they had to hire on new animators, and they went off of, you can see some different expressions of the characters and different levels of character animation in it, and it's still the bear sequence also was very risky. They originally wanted to do it on charcoal and actually shoot that sequence with the bear as a moving charcoal big bad.
Wow.
For budget reasons, they said, I think it was Glenn Keane, they said you have to go ahead and do a traditional cell animation. But so they took a lot of risks with it, and music too. There's 5 songs or so in Fox and the Hound, I guess, making it a musical. And you get Pearl Bailey, and there's other great voice cast, Jack Albertson and Sandy Duncan, and anyway, the cast is amazing in it, and never really got to see or work with any of them, including Corey Feldman. We all recorded solo, working with an assistant director, and it was they bring us back every 6 months or so and let the characters age a little bit as we go, and show some kind of time progression for that. I still have the kind of rough, raspy voice I did as Todd.
Well, that's really cool. I know sometimes with Disney, they do get to do ensemble recording, but sometimes with the bigger features, they do record solo. So it's sad that you didn't get to record with everyone in more of a family environment. But I know that being a part of that Disney family, one way or another, is pretty magical. And it's really awesome to be able to talk with you about such an iconic role from Disney.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I love Disney. I've done television series and movies under most of their brands: Touchstone, Buena Vista, Disney, and Hollywood Pictures, and the animated film, of course. I did the Cheetah off in Africa for Disney, the Tales of the Apple Dumpling Gang series. It was called Gunshy, shot on the old Disney backlot when it used to have a western town, and just to have a great I married a woman who works over at Disney and Imagineering. So
that's awesome.
Me at Disney are like this. I couldn't be, and Adventures of Babysitting, of course, was Touchstone Pictures, and Disney Channel had just released the new Adventures in Babysitting, rated G, so whole families can enjoy it, not have to worry about some adult situations and language. And I think it's amazing. Disney knows its brand, they know its audience, and they have always delivered just the best in children's entertainment that doesn't talk down to kids, and it's ones that adults can fall in love with too. And so, the Fox and the Hound was a huge honor to be a part of, and still, that's the thing. The more time that goes on, the more you feel lucky to have been a part of, something. Some label it the last of the classically animated Disney films.
Absolutely. Well, when you were talking about all those legendary animators that were taking over the reins of Disney's feature films and stuff, I did not know that Don Bluth worked on the team originally. So that I was like, wow, okay. So that was definitely new for me. I really appreciate you diving into some of the background history of the show itself, and I didn't realize it took so long to actually make the film. So wow, that's unique.
It did. They used forms of rotoscoping. They had built a wire model of the Jack Albertson character, Slade, and his truck.
Yeah.
They used the wire model, which is on display over at Disney Studios, to kind of do a painting over. I don't know. It's tough to explain, but it wasn't quite computer animation, but it was getting there.
Wow. It was like pre-computer.
And there's borrowed scenes. There's borrowed scenes from, I believe, Bambi.
Oh, okay. Well, that's unique.
There's some recycled footage. You have to look for it, especially when Todd is dropped off in the forest and he does that first night in the storm. It's the same storm sequence as Bambi. So
wow.
Look closely, you'll see a bit of recycled stuff. They're known to do that occasionally.
But it kind of ties it all in, I think. It kind of brings you home, so...
Yeah, and a lot of those kind of callbacks, they're just like audio engineers using the Wilhelm Scream or Castle Thunder. They go, we have this great, motion footage we'd shot, and they use that for Sleeping Beauty or Beauty and the Beast, or, I think they're aware of what they're doing, and they don't think they're not going to get caught.
Yeah. People
go, I recognize that source, and that's kind of a meta tribute within the piece itself.
Yeah. It's really unique, and I think that's awesome. You mentioned Adventures in Babysitting, and I believe you were celebrating a 30th anniversary this year.
Oh, I know. 30 years. I just can't believe it has been that long. And very happy and proud that, audiences still have a place for it in their heart. I still love it. I can watch it anytime. And I love everybody involved with it. I think, it was such a fun movie, and so supported by Disney and Touchstone, and so I'm just nothing but pleased with it. I'm about to have a babysitter double feature at the Egyptian Theater here, September 8th. Adventures in Babysitting and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter is Dead, the Warner Brothers picture.
Oh wow!
So that's it. We're still we're going to get David Simpkins and hopefully Maya Bruton to come. So far, rumors of some other guests and from Adventures in Babysitting, and so I just can't wait to see some of the folks again that worked on this. And it was 3 long months, late December of '86 through March of '87, and then released in July. July.
Wow!
So they put it together very fast.
Yeah.
They didn't use a lot of special effects. They used in-camera special effects. The VistaVision process they'd used on Stand By Me and The Fugitive, and Outland, and James Cameron used it on Terminator movies for the future sequences. It allows you to do front projection on the actors, and right there in camera, in dailies the next day, the shot's done. There's no green screen or anything. And it's a great kind of mid-level high technology to do special effects for films, and we used it for a few sequences in Adventures of Babysitting. So I think that and everybody's instincts were right the first time. So the score, the music, the advertising campaign in the year it came out, all of that was just luck. Luck that it had great traction with audiences. Teen films were absolutely happening at that time, and it's got a great background with a great fantasy adventure writer, David Simpkins, and a director that, although his freshman try as a director, he'd written Goonies, Gremlins, and Young Sherlock Holmes. So Chris Columbus, who later went on to join the John Hughes universe with Home Alone, that's him. That's his fingerprint all over the film. His dark sense of humor and his sense of fun and adventure.
Yeah, and there's definitely a fingerprint that's left even just from that era in the late 80s, early to mid 90s. And some of those films, you just go back to them and you watch them and you just go, man, it's just a great era. And sometimes you miss that, because sometimes the way they did films were just so, I don't know, they were just so inspiring and so magical in their own right, so.
That's why I love things like Stranger Things and even Glow. It really does put and also F is for Frank on Netflix, the animated series, Bill Burr. They put their thumb right on a certain time in space that's not necessarily a pop culture point of view of it, but what we were going through growing up through it for those that did. I was born in 1970, so yeah. I kind of seen the 70s and the 80s and what I remember of the 90s happening.
Well, that's really awesome. I really appreciate you diving into that a little bit, Keith, and happy 30th anniversary, man. That's super epic.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And here's shout out to Chicago, shout out to Toronto, and, the whole cast and crew. Love you guys. Happy 30th. And now for audiences, go ahead and buy it on Amazon, a DVD. It's streaming on Netflix off. No, I'm just kidding. I turned it to salesman mode.
Well, you've gotten to be a part of some amazing television shows too throughout your career, such as Tales from the Crypt, Knight Rider, Mork and Mindy, and even the Waltons. And there's some others we'll definitely look at here in a moment. But I know you played a character named Jeffrey Burton on the Waltons for about 18 episodes. And what was it like getting to work on that television show that is such a staple and icon?
Absolutely amazing. I played a little brat. I watched some of the episodes and I'm like, I would smack him. I would totally smack that kid. And I was having so much fun. And the family who they'd been going for, 7 seasons. This was the 8th season of the Waltons. I did 18 of the episodes that year. They embraced us because we were family. We were cousins. And our Aunt Rose and me and Martha Nix, who played Serena Burton, we all move in, and the great Peggy Ray had played Aunt Rose, and we move in, and the family took us on as family. By the end of the season, we were pretty good kids, and they never stopped loving us in their Waltons way. And to this day, whenever I see the cast members, there's just that love and a shared experience of the time that we spent putting out a show. It had slipped in ratings by the later seasons, but still did another. It still had a 9th season after ours, and it was mostly shot at the Burbank Studios at Warner Brothers Studios, and Franklin Canyon Reservoir was used a lot.
Well, it is such a classic show. I grew up on it. My parents raised me on a lot of classical shows, and The Waltons was just such a special and heartwarming show for me. And so, getting to know that you'd been on that show, it was like, what? Because, you watch these things as a kid and you grow up loving things, and sometimes you don't always realize who's all in the shows in tandem. And then when you start doing research for something like this, it's like, wow, that's super epic.
Well, just keep in note, the Waltons house has gone on to become the Dragonfly Inn and Gilmore Girls, and Norm Macdonald's house on the Middle.
Oh, wow. Awesome. That's really cool. Well, when you worked on Mork and Mindy, did you ever get a chance to speak with or know Robin Williams, or did you know him outside of the show?
Not outside the show, but, you're thrown into a process that's been going on for 2 or 3 years. It happened to be the last episode of Mork and Mindy.
Wow.
It was Gotta Run Part 2, I think is the episode title. And they had been discovered as aliens, and we're now confronting that with the press. And I played a little, middle school interviewer interviewing Mirth. So I got to not only work with Robin Williams, but with Jonathan Winters, the great Pam Dauber. Pam Dauber's a trooper to put up with such lunacy around her constantly. But it's, it's applied. It's not just, these two, Robin Williams and Jonathan Winters, they have a method to their madness that would be going on whether there's a show filming or not. And it's not erratic at all. It's hard work and genius and fearlessness is what it is, and all the really great comics that we laugh at, but don't talk about what their subject or content matter is amongst our friends and family. But we know we all do that.
Yeah.
That kind of truth, that's what it was like. And although it had run out of steam and was, the end, and I think they knew it while they're filming it, spirits weren't high. The work was great and got done, but Offset, it wasn't a party at all. It was, it was pretty morose. But still very fun, and I got to see their living room set get blown apart. And Jay Thomas, the late Jay Thomas, of course, we just lost him. He was on the show as well.
Well, Mork and Mindy is a show that most people listening may be like, what are you even talking about? But you guys need to check it out. It's a very funny show, and Robin Williams, along with another great studded star cast. It's a great show. It really is. And I highly recommend people checking it out. I know some other shows that you got to be a part of too here and there. Keith, were Chips, which was a motorcycle cop show, which they've recently remade a feature film about that same TV show that came out. And you were on Little House, The Love Boat, Diagnosis Murder with Dick Van Dyke, and so many more. You've been a part of some super iconic shows that I pretty much watched all of growing up.
Oh, thanks. I did too.
Which is super
Especially
awesome.
the sci-fi, anything like Fantasy Island or Love Boat, Knight Rider. I absolutely watched. Was very excited to be on Knight Rider because it hadn't come out yet. So I'd read about it in the special effects magazines and stuff that this talking car was coming, and it was be such a cool show.
Yeah.
And here I am sitting in it and having, at the back lot of Universal in Clock Tower Square, just loving every living second of it. And David Hasselhoff was super, super, super groovy.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear it. Well, I haven't ever spoken with David Hasselhoff, but he's always seemed like a pretty awesome dude. But we did have William Daniels on the show, who was the voice of Kit, and that was super epic as well.
And I got a chance to meet him at an autograph show just this year, and you always kind of black out a little bit when you meet a celebrity. I fanboy out, and I said, "Hi, I was on an episode. I sat in you. You were very comfortable." I don't know why I said that. He didn't know what the hell I was talking about.
He was like, what? That's awesome. But, I probably would have geeked out like that too if I had been in person. I know when I interviewed him, it was one of those moments where I kind of tripped over myself a little bit.
Yeah. And just his voice too. It makes you...
Oh, the resonating voice. It's like, whoa, what? That's so, wow. It's amazing. Yeah, for sure. Well, Keith, I was wondering, do you have social media for people to reach out to you, contact
Absolutely.
you, ask you questions or any of that?
I do. KeithCooganOnline.com, and then on Twitter, Keith Coogan, and on Instagram, Keith Coogan. KeithCoogan. Check it out. Me and my wife Pinky, we're hitting a lot of autograph conventions and Comic-Cons and having fun going out talking to all the fans. We've got the double feature coming up, as well as the premiere of a feature I did with Sean Kanan, and it's called Limelight. It's premiering at the Burbank Film Festival September 7th. Jonathan Lipnicki's in it. Paul Vandervoort wrote, directed, produced, based on his experiences being a top YouTube star or Instagrammer who gains enough followers and fame to make his way to Hollywood to try to break into the show business through that channel, which is happening more and more. And it's kind of the tragic story of true story of what happened to him when he came to town. It's a great film, very, very sarcastic and witty, and Jenna Jameson's in it. She's just lovely. So yeah, go to those, KeithCooganOnline.com and Instagram and Twitter, Keith Coogan, and I'll talk to you guys online.
Fantastic. Well, Keith, what kind of advice would you have for somebody that might be looking at getting into this crazy world of acting, and especially if they're trying to kind of maybe work towards the niche of voiceover through the acting industry?
Wow, I couldn't say much on working on the niche of voiceover, as Fox and the Hound truly is my only voice credit, but not for not trying. Auditioned for hundreds of voice parts, including the voice of Jack in the Jack in the Box commercials.
Oh, cool.
The new one, the old Jack wanted more money, so they had to. Get. So I don't know the secret to getting paid for that work, but I do know that you have to build out a nice home studio, like it looks like you have. You have to stretch your range and try all sorts of characters. Learn a lot of the basics, breathing techniques, just the technicalities of being a voice actor. There's tons of schools and workshops. There are workshops that focus, and as long as they do the disclaimer that there's no parts guaranteed, there are workshops that bring in vocal casting directors for voiceovers and will give you the best inside tips you can possibly imagine. Once again, with no promise of parts. If they do, it's a violation of the Krikorian Act, and they can bring charges against them.
Wow.
Because you should never have to pay to audition, but you can certainly pay to take a good class in a workshop, especially if they have a great guest director. That kind of education is invaluable and will bring you as close to getting on the set as possible.
Absolutely. Wow. That was definitely some advice that I wasn't even aware of. You said it was called the Krikorian Act, or is that right?
Yeah, it's a act to prevent preying on people that are unaware of the way that the industry works. And they may say, for $100 you come in and we'll give you a part, maybe. Yeah. And you can't say that. You can't say that. You can't say that something's an audition situation if they're paying at all. Yeah. Or that, you may get a role from this. Matter of fact, in reality, to be legit, no, you cannot. And any role, even, it would have to. But it's great to show casting directors. They'll start to see you if there's a unique voice in there or something that sparks. Everybody can work at it. They can be technical actors. Some people just have it.
Yeah.
And they don't, that I'm very jealous of those people. They can sing and dance and this. And I'm like, yeah, really? You have to? It's like Ryan Gosling. Enough. Just put it down.
Ryan, yeah, he's a funny guy. I love him. But, that's good to know.
That's the other thing. Try it. Get puppets. Do voice things over that. Everyone's got an iPhone, so there's no excuse. People can create, and the time and the diligence and the patience that it takes to create content, as sooner or later you're going to know whether you like it.
Yeah.
That's if it's not for you, you'll know, and then people can move on. But there's really no shortcuts. It's a hard way to make an easy living.
Well, I have one final question for you today, Keith, and we will close out the show today. The question is, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Who, me?
Yeah.
The dishes are done, man. Or, seriously, I think the line from Fox and the Hound between Todd and Copper, mid-movie, when, they haven't grown up yet and seen what the world can really ask them to be like. We'll always be friends forever, won't we? The end of the Fox and the Hound is absolutely bittersweet. And I'd love that kind of, that work that instructs. I'm very proud of the Ray Bradbury All Summer in a Day, a Scholastic film that I did. A lot of people saw that in school or on Showtime or something like that when they were growing up. And, you strive, to be a small part of something that is bigger than all of us. That's the only thing. And so for anything that not just I had any finger in, but just the great, just the great art. That's the thing. Anything, if anything, there's people like about me or whatever, it's up to them. It's pretty subjective. But thanks for the time. I really appreciate that. And I guess just to be remembered is really all we ask for. So yeah. Would be the enduring legacy, and a continued protection for children in the industry, and help those kids transition up into healthy happy adults.
Absolutely. Well, I really do applaud you and your family for carrying on the legacy of the Coogan Act, because kids, when you're young, you just don't know everything. And when there's adults that are looking out for those kids, that really means a lot to me, because, I know growing up, sometimes you didn't know everything you needed to know. And if you just had that one adult who would have shared something more with you in that aspect, like car buying or how to pay your bills or something, I feel like that's just a wonderful legacy that you guys are leaving behind. And I'm glad that you guys are carrying that on for your grandfather.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, Keith, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on the show today. I cannot thank you enough for your valuable time. Would you please just close the show out today?
Sure. This is Keith Coogan, and thank you everyone for listening. Who Did That Voice podcast. Trenton, thanks for having us, and the dishes are done, man.
Well, everyone, I sure hope you enjoyed today's episode with Keith Coogan, the voice of young Todd from Walt Disney's The Fox and the Hound. And if you did, please find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram by searching Who Did That Voice. I would love to hear from you. You know, a question you might ask yourself is, where can I listen to Who Did That Voice? That's an excellent question. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co. Click the Episodes tab and listen away. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us next time for our special guest, Blue Man Kuma, the voice of Tigertron from Transformers Beast Wars. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, do you ask yourself who did that voice? Well, if you do, go to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and click on the Episodes tab. Choose an actor, pick their name, and see pictures from the different characters they voiced in their career.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.